Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it here with us on NACTV. I'm Eoin Devereux with the Banner Press, welcoming you to the January 17th edition of this publication and this television program. I'm joined this week by Casper Wehrhahn, journalist as well with the Banner Press. Casper, good to have you here this week.
Good to be here and eager to go through the variety of stories that we have for this week's edition.
That's right. It's our first sort of official version of the Story Behind the Stories for 2025, because last week's was more of the year in review, looking back, shooting the breeze, as it were, about some of the things we were reminiscing about the year that was. And now we're back into the real work and the real news. And boy, do we got some real news for you this week. I'm very proud as first sort of real papers of 2025 go. I think this one's pretty darn good, I'll be honest with you. And we start as always with the front page, and we got a few items of note on the front page. The first of which, an article, a short article by Ken Waddell, the publisher, owner and operator of the Banner Press, as he talked about the renovations that are going on right now on the Kerr block. Now, if you're not from Neepawa, if you watch the show from elsewhere, the Kerr block is part of our downtown core here in Neepawa. It is a bunch of historic buildings just sort of attached to one another, right between our town office and the Roxy Theater. And they've been around for pretty much as long as Neepawa has been around. Historic brick buildings, and they had over the years sort of come into disrepair. And that's honestly, Casper, I think that's being overly kind to just how crappy they actually were for the longest time.
Perhaps, yes, perhaps quite generous though. Yeah, if readers remember, obviously we had a little bit of a photo. It might have just been a photo and cut line. Might have been a little bit of a story there with it a while ago, just showing, hey, these signs were put up on the building. It's basically condemned.
Yes.
More or less. It got condemned due to the condition it was in, and people who were in the apartments on the upstairs portion did have to move out because of that condition. And obviously there's been a lot of changes recently happening with it now, which I'm personally very excited to see going on.
These changes as well have been, for the most part, going on maybe a little bit behind the scenes since the fall. In the fall, people in and around Neepawa started to notice that there was a little bit of work going on the Kerr block and in many of the buildings associated with it. There were crews there taking out some of the old furniture, taking out some of the old elements of it. It was pretty much stripping it down to its bare essentials. And within the last week or so, one of the exterior visual components of it got a big upgrade. If you'll go and get a copy of this week's edition of the Neepawa Banner Press, you'll be able to see on the front page they have replaced all the old style windows with some new, most likely better insulated new windows. And they've got them in there on the front and on the back there. So the visual aspects of what's being new and improved, we can see for our very own eyes now. There's still a lot of mystery behind some of it. We do know that it sounds like there's a Winnipeg organization group that has purchased the buildings. From what I've heard, we haven't never received sort of the official formal confirmation on that. I mean, it's a little secretive in that terms, but that's an owner's prerogative. If they don't want to share anything publicly, they don't have to in terms of this. But it is nice that at least somebody saw value in it and wanted to sort of preserve it in some way, shape, or form, because there wasn't really anybody locally that had the means or the desire to do so. So it would have been a case of they just would have sat there and rotted, or we would have just had to have knocked them down. And I don't think either was optimal for a community such as Neepawa. So at least they're going to be used. The plan right now is that there will be apartment complexes in there, and maybe on the base level, maybe there will be commercial again. Who knows? When I first moved here just over 10 years ago, there were one or two of those that were occupied by businesses. But even then, 10 years ago, over a decade ago, you could walk in there and you could see, man, this is really, they need to do something about this. This is getting this is run down. So it's nice to see that it's going to be preserved and it's going to be kept in operation in some way or another. And when we do have a little bit of additional information for you, we will definitely share that with you in the pages of the Banner Press. Also on the front page, just going to give a quick shout out. The Neepawa Health Center was able to welcome its first New Year's child on January 6th, Monday, January 6th, a little later in the season than usual. Congratulations to the Waldner family for their child, their birth, a healthy baby. I apologize if I mispronounce this because of the way my name is spelled. I'm very mindful and demure about pronouncing other people's names correctly. But Medija Waldner, I most likely mispronounced it. I apologize for that. Was born on the 6th, 8 pounds, 5 ounces. From what the bits and pieces we've heard, family is doing quite well. So congratulations and best wishes for peace and happiness in the years ahead to them. All right, let's get into the news aspect a little bit more. Now, unbeknownst, for the most part, from either of us, Casper and I decided to work on the exact same story this week, but from 2 slightly different angles. If you've been a loyal reader of the Banner Press, you know last year we talked a little bit about a local business that was a nominee and ultimately a recipient of what is known as the Canadian Choice Awards. Those are a national organization that reward and spotlight mid to small size businesses in a many different demographics and genres. So it was wonderful. Last year, it was Frozen Fire Studios that received some recognition. This year, they received some recognition again, and we also got an acknowledgement of another business just a little down the road. And Casper, you've got that story about a little bit of a success story down in, if I remember correctly, Gladstone.
Yeah, I sure do, and you're absolutely right. It is in Gladstone there. A bit of a newer business here that I was very happy to learn about. So I always like learning about new businesses in the area, things that I've not heard about before and all that sort of stuff. But this business that my story covers here is Butterfly Whispers, owned by Jackie Gold. And it sort of specializes in alternative options to real flowers. So it gives a sort of lower cost option to people who might have a lower budget for, like grad flowers, funeral flowers, all that sort of stuff. Just custom arrangements if you want them, all that sort of thing. And it was something kind of new to me. Obviously there's lots of crafty people out there, but I'd never really seen it in sort of like a business form. So very interesting talking to Jackie there, learning a bit more about her business, how she got started into it, family inspirations, all that sort of thing. And she got Canadian Choice Award for the gift shop category. So that was pretty exciting. Congratulations very much to Jackie. And I perhaps will mention as well, it's not in the story, but her husband Sheldon actually did, while he didn't win this year, he did get another nomination this year. He's won in 2024. I think he won a couple awards for his business as well. So congratulations to you both.
Very good to hear that not only that there is a new business that is thriving in Gladstone, but they're getting some recognition. And I think that recognition is going to be very helpful for the year ahead, because there's an example of that success and how helpful it was in our next story. I was able to talk once again with Frozen Fire Studios, a recipient last year of a Canadian Choice Award, and this year they won again, but in a different category. They ended up winning a prize for spotlighting achievement in live audio services, DJ services category. Last year it was primarily in recording and production services for a small business. Anyone who's familiar with Frozen Fire knows they have their own music studio just in their facility, and they won for that last year. And this year they won for, as I said, live music and DJ services. So they were out and about in the community. And speaking with Jeff Descender about that, he shared with me that last year's award, last year's recognition did help them. They were able to open up that door, as it were, into the industry and get their name out there. But of course, it only goes so far. When you do something like that, awards will give you that opportunity, but then you've got to take the opportunity and hold on to it with what you present and what you bring to the table. And he said that's something that has kept them in the spotlight, is because they operate almost like a family first type of thing. The artists that are involved with this, it is a family oriented sort of thing. They don't treat it as numbers. They don't treat it as sort of just the bottom lines on a margin call. And that shines through, he says. The artists feel appreciated in there. The businesses that hire them in terms of DJ services and live entertainment, they feel it. They feel it's more than just a gig. They want to make sure that every little portion of it is something special for those individuals and for those groups. And it's recognized. And I'm glad to see that it is recognized. So very much congratulations to both those businesses for being nominated. It's not self-nomination. You have to be nominated by other individuals out in the region, out in the community, and it has to be multiple nominations. You just can't have your cousin call up and say, hey, you should nominate these guys. You got to have, if I remember correctly, I think it's about 10 different individual nominations that are part of it. And that's just the nominations. Then they look into you, they see what you do, they see what you're all about, and then they give you that recognition. So it's wonderful to sort of see that achievement on a local level, not just once, but twice. And again, if you want to find out a little bit more, you can find that on the pages of this week's edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. Always remember, you can find it in 30 different communities throughout Western Manitoba. Physical copies, always, if you're able to pick one up. Or you can find it somewhere online on We've made some changes to the website. We've heard some people talking about some changes to the website. If you punch in mywestman.ca, it'll still bring you over to Neepawa Banner and Press. And it's in there somewhere. We're still working out the bugs on that. But I assure you, you will find a copy of it somewhere on that page. I haven't looked myself, I'll be honest with you. Once I'm done with the paper, and I'm already working on next week's. But I'm sure there's a paper in there somewhere on that website at mywestman.ca or bannerandpress.com. Somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yep.
It's out there.
I'm not exactly selling with confidence right now, unlike Frozen Fire. But it's there. And hopefully you'll find it. And if you find it, can you let me know where it is on the website? That'd be fantastic. That'd be greatly appreciated. All right, let's get back into the news that is, and the news that was for the week that was, January 17th. We're going to travel out from Neepawa and out from Gladstone. We're going to head down the road towards Carberry. Chamber of Commerce recently had their annual general meeting. Casper, you were able to take care of some of this information and get it tracked down, and you've got the latest in terms of what's the what in terms of the Chamber of Commerce.
Sure do. Had a little bit of official business that I was able to share in this story on page 7 here. So definitely take a look at that, get familiar with all the stuff that the Chamber was able to share with me for the official business. There's changes, of course, of the executive. They do that each and every year. They review the executive, take nominations, vote on it, etc. And a little bit about their reflection on how the year went and where they're hoping to go. Part of that as well, though, was the return of their awards night at the AGM. So there was a number of individuals who were recognized at this event that evening. Many more as well that were nominated for this recognition, and congratulations to all of you. Reading the reviews on it that I was provided, there was a lot of outstanding individuals that could have been specifically given these honors. There was a number of awards given for outstanding youth, Community Member of the Year, Business of the Year, Volunteer of the Year, Lifetime Achievement. And again, each one of these individuals sounds like an outstanding member of the community in multiple different facets, including, of course, volunteerism. Many of them do volunteer work and are involved in the community in a number of different ways. So definitely take some time, get familiar with these people, and if you can, maybe just give them a little, hey, kudos. They sure as heck deserve it.
That's right. And what I really like about that as well is there's a good example of a thriving community, a smaller community in Western Manitoba that does have a sense of purpose in terms of its chamber, its business sector, and wants to see collectively sort of achievements made for their community. So it's nice to see them working together in that way. There's far too many communities where the Chamber of Commerce is weak or non-existent. And to see it thriving in Carberry, it's wonderful to see. In the weeks ahead, the Neepawa District Chamber of Commerce will be holding their annual general meeting, and we'll have that story. And we hope to be able to follow that up as well with similar positive and progressive news, because these types of things, are very important for the long-term viability of these types of communities. So hopefully you'll take a moment, educate yourself a little bit on it, and as Casper said, maybe sometime down the road, if you're able to get down the road, down to Carberry, you'll be able to help out those businesses on a personal level. All right, we're going to go national now about a story most likely everybody's been talking about as of late. On January 6th, it was announced that Prime Minister and leader of the Liberal Party of Canada, Justin Trudeau, would be stepping down from both roles. He'll be stepping down essentially as Liberal leader effective immediately, and he will be stepping down as Prime Minister once a new leader for his party is selected in the weeks ahead. We're already starting to see some of the viable and potent candidates who are announcing for it, so that should be very interesting to see who comes out of that. But we also wanted to get a little bit of reaction on a local level, so we went and spoke to our Member of Parliament for our area, Dan Mazer, and got his perspective on it. And we wanted to focus a little bit more on another aspect of it, because we've all heard the response, the read and react, as it were, to Justin Trudeau stepping down. That's been done to death. I wanted to get Dan's perspective on the decision to prorogue, those unfamiliar with the term, just essentially to delay Parliament up until mid to late March, because they wanted to give time for the Liberal leadership to be decided and for them to go through the process. So in essence, Parliament is at a complete and utter standstill when it should be at work. If you're not happy about it, I agree with you, I'm not happy about it. And guess what? Dan's not happy about it either. He would like to be able to be doing his job. And it is disappointing. He does stress, however, that it's not about partisanship. Okay, yeah, I'll believe him on this. And that's not shot at Dan in any way, shape, or form. Dan's always been fair, I've found, but it's just everything seems partisan when it comes to politics nowadays. But he says it's more about, there was very important legislation about housing, about infrastructure, about international commitments to NATO as well. A lot of things about internet policy that are on the table right now, that are now wiped off the table. Anything that could have been made in terms of those progress is done. It's gone. It's over. And he has expressed frustration over that because there was some very important policy that needed to move forward. And again, it wasn't even policy maybe per se that was brought forward by his federal party, the Conservative Party of Canada, but just in general that needed to be done. Some that was brought forward by the Liberal Party. He might not agree with the way it's laid out, but he agrees in terms of some of the long-term attributes and positives that it could create for Canada. But now it's all wiped out, and he was not happy about that. And quite honestly, I don't blame him. It is disappointing, but that's the reality. You can't operate a country and try and find the leader for that country at the same time. That's a fine balancing act. And it's not fair to I don't think it would be fair to the Liberal Party of Canada to try and govern while they're trying to find an individual who will govern for them, who will be that guide for them. So that's just the reality of the situation. And as for the whole Trudeau thing, his decision to step down, this isn't part of the story. This is just a personal anecdote. Back in 2013, I had an honor and privilege, and I will say that, it was an honor and a privilege to be able to do an interview with Justin Trudeau during the leadership battle where he was fighting to become the leader of the Liberal Party. He wasn't there yet. I was working for a radio station in Portage-la-Prairie at the time, and I was sent out on assignment to Long Plain First Nation where Trudeau was doing an event. And I got a chance to do an interview with him after the event. I got to see his interactions with those individuals during the event. And even after the fact, after we quit recording and everything was off the record, he stood around and he spoke to me for 10 minutes, just shooting the breeze about a few different things he thought about. And he thought maybe Canada needed to make progress on, and maybe Canada was slow in making progress on. And I thought to myself, this is a good thing. This is some positivity here. This is an individual who could be that wave of hope that Canada is looking for. The United States of America found that, I think, in 2008 with Barack Obama becoming the president. A lot of individuals think they found it again in 2016 with Donald Trump, and they think they found it again in 2024. Whether you agree or disagree, that's up to you. That's your own prerogative. But I felt at the time that Trudeau was saying all the right things. And I think as a nation, I think all of us, whether we were conservative or liberal or anywhere in between, I think we wanted him to succeed. We desperately were hoping that he was going to be that pinnacle for us in a political sense that was going to drive Canada forward, put us back on the global stage, make us a player once again, and put us in a place where we could feel proud again to be Canadians. I don't know if it worked as well as we all... Well, no, I'll say it. No, it didn't work out as well as we wanted it to. I think even if you're a Liberal supporter, you can say it did not work out as well as those glory days of 2014 and 2015 would have made out to be. And that's disappointing, but we all as a collective wanted him to succeed. For the most part, like I've said, you're a loyal and consistent viewer. For the most part, I'm a conservative. Oh, big surprise, middle-aged white guy is a conservative. But again, I'm a fiscal conservative. I always put that little fiscal at the front part. It's not social issues. I believe it's got to be a lot more live and let live than a lot of conservatives seem to want to do nowadays. But in terms of spending, I'm sort of right down the line with them, yeah. But I think we all collectively wanted Trudeau to be able to sort of work and to put Canada on the right track. And it worked for a while until it didn't. There needed to be a change in terms of that party. And there will be a change. What that change is going to be interesting. And it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with our next election, most likely going to be occurring in the spring. But like I said, I just wanted to share that anecdote, a personal anecdote about that, and just sort of my perspective on where that is. I don't know if that contributed anything positive to your day. I don't know if you've already flipped the channel over to a hockey game. I wouldn't have blamed you if you did. But let me throw over to you, Casper. Let me get your take, because as a younger person, the future's yours. What is your take on where Canada's at right now and where you hope whomever is going to be the next leader is going to take it?
I mean, I think you've said it pretty well. I think Trudeau's definitely been kind of a mixed bag. I mean, most leaders, I imagine, are mixed bags. But, yeah, I mean, it's not ideal, the timing of the delay to government, because there's a lot on the table, and they were already kind of on hold, of course, for the winter breaks, which, understandable, winter break, family time, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. But now that's delayed even further. Of course, there was a lot of stuff that was going to the table or was on the table to get looked at further, and possibly put in place, that, well, there's just nothing happening with it now, and that's going to be sitting there for quite a while yet. So there's a lot of things that are delayed to quite an extent here, which, yeah, understandably is very, very frustrating, especially for people such as Dan Major that want to get out there, do their jobs, and try and put stuff forward that will benefit the citizens of the province, of the country. And in terms of leadership, maybe people will disagree with me on this, maybe others will agree. I'm kind of on the fence. I'm kind of like, he was like okay, but also maybe overstayed his welcome as prime minister, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff that I was like, Yeah. Some things that were good and fine, whatever, but there was stuff here and there that was just like, okay, can we get someone new in here? Like this, I don't know about this guy, but regardless, whoever steps up next, I hope will get the party going into a good direction there, and hopefully they'll make some forward momentum with their policies and just the general direction of the party overall.
I think overall as well, and not to get nostalgic once again, but let's go back to a version of politics in Canada maybe towards the 90s, in which there was more centralism. The Conservative Party of Canada, which used to be called the Progressive Conservative, because there was progression in there, and the Liberal Party of Canada were a little more centralized. They were two sides of the same coin in a lot more ways back then than they are nowadays. Not to say that they were exactly the same, not that they were the exact same shades of beige, but it was a little bit closer. You could vote for Chrétien and feel pretty good about it, or you could vote for Harper and feel all right about it. But, and there was sway between them. Right now, there is no sway between Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau or whomever may come up on the other end. There's just too much of a divide right now, and I don't like the divide. My legs aren't as strong as they used to be. I can't make that jump over the divide. So I'm going to, much like many other Canadians, I might fall in the pit, but we'll see how it goes this upcoming election. We only got a minute or two left, so we're quickly going to go into this one here. Casper, you were able to track down this story of a local individual whose business was, again, some national or provincial recognition?
Provincial this time,
provincial,
yes.
Yep.
So that was a little bit of a special award there for a agricultural business, Camo Cattle, which is owned and operated by the Tibbet family. Many people might be familiar with Cam and Kristen Tibbet, but they were given this award actually back in December, shortly after the Manitoba Angus Association had their AGM. And I recently had the opportunity to get some quotes and insight from Cam on behalf of the family and all those involved at the operation there, and just getting their feel of how it felt to be recognized with this award, because they are a fairly new Angus operation, and so to be recognized as the purebred breeder of the year for 2024 was something quite outstanding for them. And just a little bit more insight into how the operation works and who all is involved.
That is fantastic. We really wish that we had a little more time to be able to go more in depth into it. And so many other stories. There's about a half dozen, 7 or 8 more stories locally that we just didn't have the time to touch on this. That's why you always got to remember to get a copy of the Banner Press, 30 different communities throughout Western Manitoba, or you can find it somewhere online. And if you have any story suggestions or ideas for us, we always do appreciate it. You can always give us a call over at 476-3401, the number we can be reached at, or via email at news@neepawabanner.com. We already got about a half dozen things we're already working on for next week's edition, and it's starting to come together very nicely. But that's why you always got to remember to pick up a copy of the Banner Press. And we do appreciate your support, not just with the paper, but right here on NAC TV. Hopefully you're going to have yourself a wonderful weekend. Thank you, and we'll see you again next week.